Merry Christmas, and asking you the question, where are you in consciousness today? What I mean to say is that people around the world are celebrating this moment. The experience of giving, of receiving, of being with family, of opening up to a sense of celebration of something greater than themselves. How are you engaged with this at the level of consciousness? Are you able to feel the wonder? The wonder of that expansive self that is connected to the one presence and the one power that is God? Or is it merely another holiday for you? I understand that our spiritual journey is not so much about adding or bringing on a new consciousness or a new idea adding to us, but rather it's an experience of letting go, of surrender, of giving way, of all those wonderful spiritual vocabulary that we have that begins to identify anything that seems to separate us from the full awareness of who and what we are as spiritual beings. Many of those are limiting beliefs, traumas, difficulties that we've had, errors that we believe to be real in our lives. And this does create a sense of separation from the full awareness of who and what we are. Now we know that we've been created in the image and likeness of God, and Matthew Fox says we are an original blessing, not an original sin. And we come into that understanding when those limiting beliefs are forgiven, are surrendered, are let go, are transformed through the spiritual process. Now what that requires of us, and that's the purpose of this video, for us to be able to have a fuller experience of the God presence that we are. When we come into that, we come into knowing who and what we are at a deeper level. My favorite Christmas carol is "O Holy Night." And the reason it's my favorite is the lyrics that have, let me share the lyrics with you. "O Holy Night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. The light of God is being born in us. Long lay the world in sin and error pining." In other words, long have I given a sense of reality, of identification with my errors, my condemnation, my mistakes, my sins, till He appears, until the light of God comes in, and the soul felt its worth. And the soul felt its worth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, until He appears, and the soul felt its worth. What this tells us, and what we understand, is that when the experience of God is truly embraced, embodied, and felt, all that sin and error and mistake and limiting belief is transformed so that we come to know who and what we are as beloved children of God. Now that is Christmas. The realization of who and what we are. Now what that requires of us is a willingness, yes, a willingness to make a commitment. And that commitment requires us to be vulnerable so that that experience can be fully felt. Let's contemplate that at a deeper level. If we have a human relationship and we feel that we want to deepen that relationship is important to us, we make a commitment to it. Now, when we make a commitment to it, it's very important that we feel vulnerable, that we allow ourselves to be changed by that relationship. We give freely without thought of getting in return. And in that giving, we're willing to be changed and transformed through that giving. Now, if in our giving, the other person was not able or willing to return that love in like manner. Maybe there's been a betrayal, maybe there's been an abandonment, maybe there's been some transgression or some detour from that love. Our experience is one of profound pain. Our relationships sometimes cause us that profound pain. And if that happens, many of us say to ourselves, we take on a belief, I am never going to open myself up to love so deeply again because I have been hurt so profoundly. And when we say that, we're closing ourselves off to have a committed relationship. Now, this is true in our human world, right? In our human relationships. But it's also true in our relationship with God. Maybe there's been some incident in your life in which you feel that God hasn't shown up for you the way you'd like. Betrayed by God, abandoned by God, forgotten by God. And so you've decided to not be vulnerable to the presence and power of God, be open to the presence and power of God. In other words, you've limited your commitment, therefore there's no deep relationship. Sometimes as children, the scientists tell us that our first identification with God is our relationship with our parents. And if our parents weren't able or willing to give us the love that we felt that we deserved, we feel somehow betrayed or abandoned by them. Then we relate our relationship with our parents as children to the one with God. And so we create those barriers. I'm never going to love God as deeply again, we say to ourselves. And we create those barriers. And what that does is limit us from coming into a full awareness of who and what we are. And so on this day, on this Christmas, my invitation to you is to come into an understanding of something which can be a profound change in your life. The knowledge that you have been totally forgiven and that you are deeply loved. Now, many of us have worked on forgiveness issues in our life. We've maybe taken on the bigger issues. But we still have some things maybe that we're not quite complete in our forgiveness. Whether it's large or small, whatever sense of self that we have that is limiting us needs to be surrendered, let go, turned over, released, so that that curtain can open and we come into an understanding of the full worth of who and what we are. On this Christmas, I'm inviting you to make a list. Make a list of those things which you feel you have not totally released or forgiven or surrendered in your life. The resentments that we still hold, the condemnations that we hold, the mistakes that we feel that we're responsible for that we've never quite gotten around. Make a list of that. Put them all down. And then read them to yourselves out loud. And as you read them, after each one, stop and take in this idea. I am forgiven. I am loved. I am forgiven. I am loved. Take that into your heart and let that truth wash over that belief that you're still with sin, that you're still with error. Let it wash over you and transform you until the soul felt its worth. I was born with a congenital hip defect. And recently I've come to realize that as a boy, I took on a belief that because I was born with a defective hip, that I was not normal. If I was not normal, then I wasn't as good as everybody else. Not good enough. A failure. Taking that belief on as a little boy. And I've seen it in my trajectory in life expressed over and over again. angry with my parents, angry with God, or whatever concept I've had of God in those days. And that little boy planted that seed of those limiting beliefs in its consciousness and held on to it ever since. And so I'm affirming this Christmas, right, for that little boy who believed that he was not normal, that he was defective, that he was not enough and a failure, that he's forgiven and that he's loved, that he's forgiven and that he's loved. Take that in deeply, compassionately, profoundly. Open myself up, vulnerable, committed to that, and allow that new belief to transform you, to lift you, to heal you at depth. I am forgiven. I am loved. And successively take that on for everything from the past. And here's a secret for the future. Every day we have things to forgive. Carry that with you. And so when you judge people, condemn them, are saying negative things, realize it. Come into an awareness that here I am separating myself again from what I really want in life, which is to know my worth, to know who and what I am as a spiritual being, and say to yourself, I forgive myself for that transgression, for that error, for that mistake, for missing the mark, for not having the consciousness. I forgive myself because I am forgiven. I am loved. I am forgiven. I am loved. And if we can continue to do that day in and day out, we'll be changed at depth. We'll come into an awareness of who and what we are as beloved children of God. And be able to celebrate Christmas not just on the 25th of December, but every day of our life. So here's Juan Enrique Toro thanking you for the thumbs up, the subscriptions, the wonderful donations that we have on the links below. May the light that is born at Christmas be born in you today. And remember, life is consciousness, and consciousness is life.